Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to continue working on the LS XR3135 tractor rebuild. And the first part of this video I'm going to give an update on a few modifications that I've done on the wiring harness that you would have seen in the previous video series. The reason for that is I've made a few modifications to better position the wiring harness in line with closer to what the manufacturer would have done. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So over here by the front of the tractor, you know that here's the engine control unit, and then here's the wiring harness. I've decided that the wire for the one branch of the wiring harness right here, in a previous video I had it running this way along the tractor, right where my pointer is, you know, coming across this way over to the firewall. Well, where it should be located is coming down, and then the wires should actually go underneath the radiator. So underneath the radiator right here, there's some foam blocks, and in between there is a bit of an opening where there's no foam, so there's a little passageway. So the passageway right now, we've got the fuel lines going to the cooler or passing through there, but now I've also have the electrical wires passing underneath the radiator, and now they come around like this right here. So here's one wire right here that's being held in place on a bracket on the engine block, and then here's the other wire from the positive terminal that's terminated right here on the starter. So that is one modification we've made from the previous videos that I wanted to cover off in this one. Some more improvements that we've made with respect to the wiring harness is installation of some clamps. So I contacted my local LS dealer and I put in a request for some nice rubberized clamps. So I've got one located up here, which keeps, you know, this wiring harness nice and secure. And then I have two more right over here. I've got one located right up here. So there's another 12mm bolt keeping that clamp in place. And I have another one, there's another one right down here. Maybe you'll have a better view of it right here like this. Here it is right here. And that keeps that wiring harness nice and secure. So if we come over to the table, I'll show you the part numbers for those clamps. So I bought one which was a 1.30. That's the one that goes on top of the engine. Here's the part number for it. And then I bought those other two, which is a 1.25. And here's the part number for it right here. A few other small little modifications to cover off. Let's talk about this wire right here, which goes to the mass airflow sensor. In the previous video, I had this wire running underneath this bracket right here, which supports the radiator. In fact, I think we took it on and off several times. But instead what I've done is that I've ran the wire on top, and then I had a couple of these little black clamps, plastic clamps in my shop, and I just put two 8mm bolts just to keep those clamps in place and to keep that wire nice and secure on the radiator. So I really like how that turned out. So a few other updates too. I put in an order from LS for this hose right here. This hose basically is the air supply from the air box that goes to the rest of the engine. I was missing this piece, and I have the part number for that right here. That hose intake is part number 402-90031. In addition to that, I had to put in a request for these radiator hose clamps. So this is new, but I forgot to order the one for this end of the hose, so I'll have to put in an order for that part. And then if you come around this side, just kind of moving along, I put in an order for a radiator hose clamp here. And you'll see that my radiator hoses for the top tank is in place. So right here, this is the one on the top of the engine. This one has been installed, and there is another one right here coming off the engine, and it goes to right over here. Let's see if I can get my pointer. I don't know if your video can see that right here. There's a radiator hose on the bottom that feeds the bottom tank. So that's installed. Since you're on this side, let's also talk about the exhaust system or the muffler. So you'll notice that my muffler pipe is installed. So there's a 14 millimeter bolt down here where my pointer is pointing at, right here. So here's the muffler. The muffler pipe comes up like this, and it connects right here at the muffler on top of the engine. Some of you will remember that in the first part of the video, this part of the muffler was modified for the testing that this tractor was undergoing. There was a 1/2-inch hole that was drilled approximately in this location. So I had a friend of mine weld in that hole with a stainless steel rod. This is a stainless steel component, so he welded that in. He ground the weld down nice and flush, and he made a few other weld repairs on the inside. I noticed a couple of cracks, so he filled those cracks in with a new weld. So I have this component in place. This exhaust pipe, what it does is that it fits over top of this pipe, and then the whole thing is kept in place with this clamp. So there's a top part and there's a bottom part to that clamp, and then there's a bolt and a nut. So all I did was I just got the appropriate size socket, and I tightened this bolt down to the point where this surface and this surface make contact. And I think that's essentially the gauge that you can use to know when this clamp is fully depressed. And now with these two pieces in place, there's absolutely no play anymore between here and here. So I know that's ready to go. The other update too that we didn't film, work continued anyway, but we'll cover it in this video, was this part here, this side guard here wasn't installed, and that's because this knob here, which threads in can be threaded in and out, holds a radiator pre-screen. So there's a pre-screen that you can slide out and clean off. In fact, here's the handle where you can pull on this. So any chaff or any hay or grass will get caught up on this pre-screen rather than getting caught up on the radiator. So in order to keep this pre-screen from vibrating, there's a knob here that you use to kind of clamp it all down. There's a nut on the inside, but that nut has a spot weld, but that spot weld broke. So there was no way to really keep that tight because the nut on the other side was turning. So I had my friend also repair that. So that nut's welded on the back side, and what I ended up doing is I just secured it with these 3 bolts, and now that's completely done, and that's ready to go. And then another update before we launch into the installation of some new components has to do with this pipe right here. We didn't see this installation in the previous video. I had this pipe, so this pipe was part of the components that I had, and really what it is just continuation of air delivery to the motor. So there's a rad clamp up here and a rad clamp down here, and you just have to tighten these 2 rad clamps in order to secure that into place. So now that's complete. So what I need to order now is a rad clamp to secure this part of the hose. So that basically kind of gives an update on where we are with the current status of the tractor rebuild. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to install the brand new oil filter, and let me show you that part. Alright, so Here is the brand new oil filter for my LS tractor. It is a genuine LS tractor part, and the part number is 403-18591. So it's a nice blue filter. It'll match the rest of the tractor. I'll remove this plastic cover. And what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of oil on this rubber O-ring and then install it on the tractor. I have a little bit of oil on the O-ring, and I put a little bit of oil inside the filter so that when at the startup the filter will have a little bit of oil already stored in here. So let's go put it onto the engine. Alright, I have my light on. What I'm going to do is just come down here and thread my filter onto the motor right here. Just thread that on. Put that on hand tight for now. Looks like I leaked a little bit down on the ground, but at least my intentions were good. So what I like to do is put it on hand tight. Okay, so that's about hand tight, and then I'll give it another quarter to half a turn. So I'm gonna go get my oil filter wrench and put it on and give this another quarter turn. So here's my wrench. I'll just get my wrench over top of the filter. Like this. And I'm just going to rely on the wording here. So I want to go a quarter turn, so that means that text would have to be right here. So I'll just turn it like that. There you go. Okay, and then I'll grab a marker. I'm going to take a marker and I'm just going to put the date. Okay, so I used the marker and I just put the date. I wrote the date on the filter so that I don't have to keep track of the date in a logbook in the garage, even though that would also be a good way to keep track of things. I just write it on the filter, so that will give me a hint as to when it would be a good time to do an oil change and do a filter replacement change. Okay, now the next step is to fill the engine with oil. So here's the oil fill. I'm just going to pull the knob off. Take that off, just set it aside for now. Here's my funnel. I'll just put that like that and start pouring in my engine oil here. Now we're going to do a level check. So I'm going to grab the dipstick, which is right here. Pull the dipstick out. And as you can see, the level of the oil right now is right at the high mark. So right at this little line on the dipstick. So that tells me that the oil level is correct. So I'm putting it back in. Okay, the next step we're going to do is we're going to fill the radiator with coolant. So let's take the cap off, set it aside. I did a quick check of all the hose clamps. Everything is nice and tight, so let's start filling up the coolant. I'll stop, check for any leaks. No leaks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the level of the antifreeze after the tractor has run a little bit and the thermostat has opened. So we'll just fill this up for now and we'll check it again later. Okay, so I have some antifreeze topped up in the radiator for now. What I'm going to do is once the engine gets turned on and it warms up, I'll turn the engine off again and I'll check the level to make sure that it's at the appropriate height. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reinstall the battery box or battery tray. I'll put that back into the tractor. I'll install the battery and I'll install the clamp that holds the battery in place. So let's start and do that now. Slide that in there like so. There's a washer on them, so that's the telltale sign. One in the back here. Just uses a number 12. Put that in. Okay, so the battery tray is in. Of course, the notch and the battery tray goes up here at the front, and that's because you need to put the battery hold down bracket right here, like so. That goes like that. But we'll put this in after I put the battery in. So let me go get the battery. Here's the battery. Slide this inside. Doesn't fit in here. I know why, because my battery box is a little bit deformed, so. Loosen that. Then will that give me enough wiggle room? That's a nice snug fit. Let's see how this looks. I think that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. This, I'm gonna just install this bolt right here. Have the battery installed. I have the battery hold down bracket installed. I'm gonna install the negative battery terminal. So I took off the protective cover and we'll flip this up. This is nice and loose, so I think this allows this to rotate. So this loosen this. like it to open up a bit more and to sit down or seat down further down on the battery terminal. There we go. Just have to keep wiggling it on. Okay, so that's nice and loose. In fact, what I'll do is I'll use this opportunity to tighten this down. Okay, that's tightened down, and I'd say right there makes sense. And then we'll just tighten this nut. Okay. We'll just reattach this protector plastic cover over top, and that's how that goes. Okay, so negative terminal is installed, nice and tight. Okay, now I'm going to connect the positive battery terminal. So I'll take the protective cover off, flip this up, make sure this is loose, and then just come over like this. Oh. Okay, so the tractor just beeped. The tractor just beeped at me. So this is on tight, like that. I'm going to grab the number 10 and just tighten that in place. Just like that. Replace the cover and just push down on this protective cover like that, and that's good. Alright, so now we're at the stage where I have to fill the tractor with hydraulic fluid. So at the rear of the tractor, there's a fill point right here. So I'm just going to pull this out, and this is just like the engine oil, a dipstick with a low and a high mark. And I'm going to target right around the high mark after I put the hydraulic fluid in. Here's the location where I'm going to use a funnel, and I'm going to start pouring in my hydraulic oil or fluid right in here. So let's get into that. So what we ended up doing was pouring hydraulic fluid in the fuel cap. So what I'm going to show you is the final level. So the level is right here, and if I turn that over, we're right at the high mark. So therefore at this stage, the hydraulic level is exactly where it should be. Now of course, once the tractor gets started up and things start circulating around, maybe we'll come back in and we'll check it again. But for now, I'm satisfied where the level is at. Okay, so I'm going to give an update on the tractor after a couple of days have passed, and I got some new parts in from the dealer. So let me show you what we've installed. So I have installed the radiator clamp that I was missing. So that's been installed. If you take a step back, you'll see the obvious. I have the hood installed. Of course, you didn't see me install the hood in real time, and that's because it's heavy and I needed some help. So both my wife and I, we worked at installing the hood, and then I thought I would come back in after and show you what's all involved with installing that. So, but before I get over and we talk about the hood and the other parts, let's just get your attention over here. So I did receive the this plastic cover. So that plastic cover right here is held in place with a very unique bolt that I've never seen before. It's basically like a plastic bolt head, and then there's an actual threaded bolt that's molded into this plastic head here. So I have my positive terminal wire coming in, and I've got that protective cover over top, so that keeps the contacts from getting damaged or getting dirty or hot wiring anything on the tractor. So if you come over here, I'll show you what that is. The part number for that plastic starter cover is right here, 402-29811. So another very important component that I didn't have when I got the tractor was this one located right over here. So I'll set the trouble light down, and I'd like to just call your attention to this part right here. So I'm just pointing at a metal piece of metal right here in a rectangular shape, and it's held in place with a machine bolt, and there's a flat milled into the shaft, which is your shuttle shift, so your forward, neutral, and reverse. And then right over here, you see that there's a proximity switch, and that proximity switch is held in place with a bolt here and here. And whenever I move the shuttle shift, so if let's say I move it to forward, you can see that the metal tab now is not in line, or is not perpendicular to that switch. And the same is true if I go to reverse. So when the tractor is in reverse, you can see how far back that tab is. So I didn't have that part. And why is that important? So that piece of metal is actually triggering that proximity switch, which is telling the engine control unit that the transmission is in neutral. So that switch itself, or that input, is actually critical to the tractor knowing that it can start. So it's like a safety switch. So just like the switch that's on the operator chair, just like the fact that the tractor's emergency brake has to be engaged for the tractor to start, just like the fact that the clutch has to be completely engaged, and the switch, that plunger switch that we saw, I think, in part number 2 of this video series, all those switches all have to be connected, and they all have to be working properly for the control system to know that it's okay for the engine to start up. So let's go back over to the work table, and I'll show you what that part number is. So here's the part number for it. It's called Plate Target TRG 750 402 63917. The other quick update I wanted to show you is this is the foot throttle, and from the first video of our unboxing, I noticed that the previous owner had written down on this that it was inoperative, and in fact there's some more writing on this right here. I'll let you use your imagination what that really means. But what was important is that since this was an operative, I went ahead and I put an order in for a brand new foot pedal, and here it is right here. Again, it's all genuine components from the dealer network. So a pedal, accelerator, part number 403-52837. So to install this, you just had the two, I think it was two 12mm bolts, and you just have to plug this into the wiring harness underneath the tractor, and I think we showed that in an earlier video. One of the problems with this unit is I found that this orange wire, this connector was damaged, and there was no way to keep this pin held in place into this boot anymore. So I think that's one of the failure modes of this unit, but maybe there was more to it behind that. So we have a new foot pedal installed, and hopefully we'll have a better success at getting this tractor started. So the next thing, let's go talk about the hood. So before I installed the hood, I installed this gasket, if you will, or this rubbery transition piece that separates the firewall and the hood. So this is rubber. There's actually 7 bolts that hold this piece in place. So there's 7 10 millimeter bolts, and they were all supplied with the components when I bought the tractor. So I put those in. Over to the hood. The hood, I think it's a 2-person job, and the installation was relatively straightforward. So what you have to do is basically you got to set the hood mount into these 2 channels right here on the tractor hood bracket that we installed in an earlier video. So once you set the bracket mount into this U block, you then take a 12mm socket, and you just tighten these bolts right here. And what that does is that basically threads into this U clamp, or this block, and it pushes this shaft, or this bracket up into the outermost area of this sort of clamp. So it's basically shaped like this. So the hood falls down like this. The bolt is threaded in, and what it does, it just pushes that shaft up in here and holds it in place, and the hood itself is able to just rotate in that location. So once you have the hood installed, then you can come in after and install your gas shock. The gas shock is right here. That keeps the hood up in the air. So in order to do that, you'll see that there's a pin. There's a pin and a cotter pin right here. So see, there's a little cotter pin. So you slide your pin in. Make sure your gas shock is in here, and then just install this cotter pin to hold everything, to keep that in place. Now, you also have to make sure that your wires, your headlights are connected. So that was another connection that we have to make over here by the firewall. So I'll just point out where that is. So right here is the wire bundle. I think I have it tucked behind this metal bracket. I think I should be able to pull that around. So right here, I'll I'll just point at it with my pointer. So right here is the male-female plastic connector. So this is what you need to connect to make the connection for your headlight. And then once you've got that in place, I just tuck the wire in here behind this metal bracket right up in here so that it doesn't interfere with anything. All right, so this is a big video or a long video, but at this stage we have all the components installed. So as you can see, with the gas shock in place, it holds the hood up real nice. It comes down, it latches. Right over here, in order to open the hood, there's a nice convenient little push button switch. Right here there's a little knob, so you press this switch in, or you press this button, and boom, the hood comes right up and stays up. I want to show, I want to talk to you about another thing that I didn't know, that I didn't have until much later, and it's on the air box. So this is the air box. The fresh air comes in this way. There's a canister filter inside, and then the air then just, you know, goes through the filter and then into the engine. Right over here, this is what I didn't have. I didn't have this rubber, I think it's a drain boot. It's located right here. If you come down here, you can somehow see that there's even like a little slit in it. So I think it might be just so that if any water or condensation gets inside, it just flows out. So I'll show you what I had. So this is my original. So this is like the end piece of my airbox, and here's the opening. So I didn't have that that little rubber stopper or that rubber end cap. And I guess one criticism I have with LS is that I couldn't just buy that. I asked for that little rubber piece, and instead I had to buy the whole airbox. So I bought the whole airbox. It was pricey, but I need to make sure that I'm getting fresh, clean air going into the engine, and you know, it was you know, it's a necessary evil. So now I know that I have this in place. The airbox came with a brand new filter cartridge. I can actually show you what that looks like. Okay, so just for those that are not familiar, this is what your air filter element looks like for your LS tractor, the XR3135. So this is my spare airbox. So your filter basically has an opening on it like this, and the airbox is obviously, you know, mounted to the front of the tractor, and you just need to insert this into the airbox, rotate it so that it seats inside, and then you put your cap on after, and then it's just held in place with these spring clips. So will I ever need another airbox canister? Probably not, but at least I have a spare filter. So I'll keep this together like this and put it on my shelf, and when it's time to do an air filter change, I'll have it ready. All right, so moving on. So now that now that this video shows you the very important metal tab that is related to the safety switch for the forward, neutral, and reverse shuttle shift, and we can then finally install this this plastic piece that goes underneath the steering column, and that's held in place with these machine screws, and you just need a Phillips screwdriver, and I'll show you where this goes so we can close up the console. So well, let's head over towards the tractor again. So those screws that I was showing you, they basically thread into these locations right here. So you can see there's 2 holes there. Okay, so you take the plastic panel like this, and you just tuck it in right underneath this panel right here, and you just bring that up like that. And then I'll just insert my 2 Phillips screws here. So there's 2 screws on this side, and there should be 1 on your side. Right here is the mounting hole. Okay, so I guess the next thing you'll have on your tractor is, you'll recall, these were the locations where we screwed the console in place. So there's these little plastic caps like this, and they basically just get installed up here like this. So I think they're just pressed in. Just line up the little tabs with the holes and just push those in. So there's 1 here, there's 1 up here on this side, so I'll push that in. I might have 2 spare. I have the 2 up on here on the dash. It doesn't look like I'm missing, or I have a spot for these 2, so I'm just going to hold on to these, put them into my toolbox, and who knows, it may become obvious to me where they go, but for now it's not obvious, but at least I got those 2 in place. Okay, so I think that's going to be the end of this video. I just want to say thank you for everyone who subscribed and who are leaving comments and who are giving us thumbs up. That really means a lot. In the next video, I think we're going to do the cold start. So until then, we're going to sign off, and we'll see you next time.